Welcome to day 1 of our Week Without Driving Advent Calendar. 21 days of lessons and practical advice on how to navigate your city without driving a car. If you're not familiar with the Week Without Driving Challenge, check out the introductory video in this series to learn the what, why, and how of participating, especially if you live in the Dallas area. If this is your first time getting around the city without a car, your first instinct might be to look for public transit options to all the same places you're used to visiting by car. However, if you've been living a car-oriented lifestyle for a long time, chances are many of the places you regularly drive to won't be easily accessible without one. To get by without a car, you may need to start searching for destinations within a human-scale distance rather than a highway distance. So before we dive into strategies for going far without a car, we first need to focus on bringing more of your daily needs closer to home. That's why the very first lesson in our Advent calendar is to shop local. So back when I used to own a car, going out for a coffee or grabbing a bite to eat usually began with a Google search. Something like cool coffee shops in DFW. I'd hop in the car and drive 15, 20, 30, maybe even 60 miles or more, just based on whatever search result or social media post caught my attention. That was my routine for most of my adult life. And for 3 years, I lived in Grand Prairie, a suburb of Dallas. During that time, I almost never visited local businesses in my own neighborhood. Aside from the Whataburger that was like 3 blocks away, fast food joints and gas stations were pretty much the only places where proximity mattered to me. Anyways, 4 years ago, I started trying life without a car. And the adjustment was very hard at first. I felt limited. I relied heavily on delivery apps for my creature comforts, but as the weeks passed by, I began to notice things, places and people hiding in plain sight. At the end of my street was a strip mall that I'd never stepped into. Whenever I drove by, I would notice 2 Latin restaurants next door to each other. And I used to wonder, why would 2 Mexican restaurants just open side by side? Wouldn't they compete for all the same customers? Why not just merge into one giant big Mexican restaurant? But once I began walking instead of driving, those restaurants transformed from a blur outside my window to actual places. I remember walking the 5 minutes down my street and exploring them both. In each I saw a large country flag hanging on the wall, and I looked over their menus and realized, wait a minute, they're not both Mexican restaurants. One's a Mexican bakery, and the other is a Guatemalan cafe. They were not competing at all. They were complementing each other. I started walking to the Albertsons 10 minutes away. I switched gyms, trading a Planet Fitness that was a 20-minute drive for a smaller gym that was a 20-minute walk. Then I learned about the historic downtown, just a little over a mile from my rental house at the time. And I had no idea their downtown even existed. By the time I left there, I found myself wishing I had more time to truly know the place that I had called home for so long. So as you're planning ahead before Week Without Driving, reflect on these questions. What services and amenities are already within walking, biking, or transit distance from home? As you explore your neighborhood, you might discover hole-in-the-wall gems that you've overlooked. Maybe there's a corner shop that has more food options than you had presumed. Maybe that run-down-looking pet clinic provides higher quality of service than you might have expected. Maybe you're the customer that some upstart small business has been waiting for. What services and amenities are missing from your neighborhood? What daily essentials, such as food, pharmacy, or childcare, are unavailable to your neighbors without cars? If you can't find a pharmacy to pick up your medications nearby, then neither can your neighbors who are elderly or disabled. If you can't find a grocery store carrying staple foods, then neither can a stay-at-home parent whose spouse has taken their one car to work. Most transportation problems are actually land use issues in disguise. So between now and the end of the challenge, as you think about what you'd tell your city representative about making your neighborhood more walkable and livable, don't just focus on how to move through your neighborhood. Think about what's missing in your neighborhood and what steps it might take to bring them back. Today we learned the first step in preparing for Week Without Driving. Now that we have better ideas about where to go, we can start being smarter with our timing. That's going to be tomorrow's lesson. See you then.